Hello, Cab here with a video about making low amounts of currency. This is for new players who generally struggle to get to 10, 20, 30 chaos orbs. It's not for experienced players. The methods I'll be going through only generate fairly small amounts, but they add up over time, and most players, experienced players, wouldn't bother doing this. But they are useful for new players. They're useful at the start of a league when nobody has any money. So hopefully you get something out of this, and we'll jump right into it. I might put a list of contents in the description so you can fast forward to the relevant areas, but we'll start with selling gems. This is very easy because you don't need to find anything. You simply buy the gems from a vendor. Now the gems that you buy will depend on what your character class is. So what I've done is I've taken my Templar character and I've bought all the gems from each act which I think are easy to sell. And you wouldn't believe this, but I only did this about 30 minutes ago. When I was done, I just dumped all the gems into my 2-ALC stash tab and I've already sold 5 of them. So if you look at my inventory, you'll see that on the left I've got some orbs. So each row matches the orb. So the bottom row, those gems cost 1 trans orb each. Those were purchased in Act 1 and so on. I'll have a summary still at the end which shows you which acts the gems came from. This is just a reference. You can see which gems I'm using and you can buy them as you work your way through the game and then sell them. So here's the steel, and the gems that I've circled are the easiest to sell. So if you just go back, you can see the names of these gems, but they're easy to sell. And generally you sell these for between 1 and 3 ALCs each. So the gems up the top are from Act 4. They cost 1 ALC each, so you have to sell them for at least 2 ALCs to make a profit, but generally you can get 2 or 3. And the gems which I paid 1 chance for, they're from Act 3. There are a lot of gems there which sell very well, and generally sell those for 2 ALC each. Only paid 1 chance, so it's a decent profit. And the gems that cost 1 alt, they're from Act 2. You could probably get 2 ALCs for those. The control destruction and elemental focus, you know, they should sell pretty easily. Conk effect fairly easily. When you're buying these gems, you can buy 2 or 3 at a time. Not everything is going to sell, but you know, they're so cheap to buy you can't really lose money, right? So that was for a Templar character. This is for a Ranger character. A lot of the green gems. Just going through here what I think are the ones to buy from each act. So Act 1 was down the bottom, Act 2 is in the alt orb row, Act 3 is in the chance orb row, and the top row is Act 4. And again, you're selling these for between 1 and 3 ALCs each, and they're so cheap that, yeah, some of them might not sell, but it doesn't really matter, and you'll get a feel for what sells and what doesn't. As the league evolves, there might be certain skills which become very popular, and you can go back and buy those gems and sell those as well. Now most players wouldn't bother to do this. I did it this league actually, and you know, at the start of the league, when every ALC is kind of important, it was actually a pretty good way to earn currency. I haven't heard anyone really describe it as a deliberate strategy, but it certainly can be. And you can generate, you know, I think easily 20 ALCs in a short amount of time, so that will be about 7 chaos. 6 or 7 chaos. You can pick up rock breakers and gavels, anything that has this sort of stone hammer appearance. So you just pick these up as you're working through the game. It's useful if you have an entire stash tab to fill up, and then you have to make them 20% quality using the blacksmith whetstone, and then you have to grab a map ideally it's a map that's worthless, so you know, Tier 1 or 2 or 3 map, and you basically take these to the vendor and sell them.
Yes.
The problem is next league, when the expansion comes out with the new Atlas and everything, chisels might not be worth much. At 3 or 4 chisels to 1 chaos, I think it's worth doing. If it's 5 or 10 chisels to 1 chaos, you might want to skip this. Depends how desperate you are, I suppose. Alright, so the next recipe is the chaos recipe. I think you've all heard of it. The key with this recipe is to have the discipline to put all of your rare items in an organized manner into one tab. I stack them up in this way with the chest at the top, then helmet, gloves, boots, and weapons and shields down the bottom. I put the jewelry over on the right hand side. And you can sort of get a whole bunch ready and, you know, vendor 3 or 4 sets at once. And it's really easy when everything's organized just to do this quickly. You want to make sure everything is identified, because occasionally there'll be a good bit of jewelry that's worth not 1 chaos but maybe 5 or 10 chaos. Or this
Another day in the land of plenty.
Or this gear has to be item level 60 or higher. So again, you have to have the discipline not to dump the wrong item level into the wrong tab. Mind you, once you're mapping, everything will be item level 60 or higher. I generally ID them before, and then as I'm vendoring them, I just look at the mods quickly to make sure there's nothing valuable. The ruby ring is garbage. You find that with this recipe, getting jewelry is the limitation, but if you out jewelry, which I might come to later in this video, you should have plenty. Now I'm just going to show you a little recipe which doesn't really generate currency, but it's a bit of fun, and I sometimes do it with pieces of jewelry. The great thing about this recipe is the item level doesn't matter, so you can do this with items that you find right from the first moment. I tend to do it with jewelry because it's easier to remember what you need to find. And you take a unique, a rare, a magic, and a normal, all of the same base, and you get 5 chance orbs. You won't pick up too many of the good bases until you get to sort of merciless, but as you're grinding Dried Lake and maybe doing early maps, you find yourself picking up a lot of flasks, and some of them won't suit your build, so you may as well craft them. Generally I average about 3 to 4 chaos for each flask. The most expensive flask I've sold was about 15 chaos. It had a double perfect roll. I think it was a silver flask, and I rolled perfect movement speed and perfect reduced charges. So I guess you have to understand a little bit about the game to understand what is a good roll. So I thought I would just craft these few flasks in my inventory, starting with 60 alts, and you might at least get some idea as to what is valuable. So we start on the diamond flask, and here we hit 85% extra evasion. This is generally a good roll to hit. It's a decent value. You want it above 90 ideally, but 85 is worth keeping. So we're going to apply an orb to get the second mod. And with that we get the increased duration. So that's really good, because having a flask last a little longer is useful, so we're definitely going to keep that. Now a basalt flask, these are very popular, easy to sell. We have the curse immunity, not very popular but useful for some people. Don't really like the second roll there, so we roll over it. This is a nice roll, 18 extra charges, very useful, and extra evasion was quite a good roll, so definitely keeping that one. This should sell really quite easily, especially early in the league. Quicksilver Flask, the armor roll is kinda low, but we might all get just in case we get something good. Increased effect, so we'll get a bit of extra speed, but it wouldn't be as good as a double movement speed, which has a movement speed mod on top of the implicit, so probably roll over that. Armor's good, but charge recovery not really. Maybe this is worth keeping, but we'll probably roll over it. And we hit a movement speed mod, so now we have a double movement speed flask. These are pretty popular, especially early in the league. Unfortunately, the first mod, the recharges 3 charges thing, is not very good, not very desirable, but it's probably sellable, so we'll probably keep this. The max movement speed roll is 30%. It's between 20 and 30. So this is, a reasonable roll. Note this flask has percent. If you're picking up quality flasks, it's an advantage because they're a little bit easier to sell. Don't quality them yourself, it's too expensive, but if they're quality to start with, you should roll them, they'll sell a little more easily. Here we got a perfect movement speed. I don't know that this is really desirable on a Sapphire Flask, but since it's perfect roll, we'll see what we can get. And we got reduced charges, which is generally quite desirable. Nothing more annoying than running out of a flask, so we'll try and sell that one. Again, it might not sell, but it's worth trying. And here we have a 20% flask. It's an Eternal Flask, which is the best life flask you can get. Oh, the reduced charges is actually a very good thing to have. That might be a perfect roll, not sure. But you can use this flask 4 times, which is pretty good. Hopefully a good roll with the Org. And we get knockback, which is really not very desirable. We get evasion, but it's not a great roll. Low life, extra recovery, not so great. The first 3 mods here are useful, but the stun recovery, not very desirable. Extra charges is always good. We didn't get the best roll, but it's okay. And immunity to poison is pretty useful. I never played with that for a long time, but I've realized you should have at least 1 poison flask. So this is probably sellable, and it's the kind of flask you could use for yourself or any life-based character. So not a bad one to have. This was a very brief example, so I thought I'd just show you the flasks on my character to show you a couple of other rolls that are desirable. I didn't roll any staunching flasks in these 5, which is a little surprising. And we only spent 16 alts, which is 1 chaos. And even if only 3 of these sold, we would have 6 chaos at 2 chaos each. So, we'd make a pretty good profit. None of these flasks are excellent, so wouldn't ask too much more than 2 chaos, maybe 2 or 3 chaos each. So here are my flasks. Again, we've got a granite with poison removal. So the poison removal I find very useful. My Quicksilver has double movement speed, and importantly it also has reduced charges used, so I can sort of use it an extra time, and it's better than the one I just crafted. I've got 2 life flasks here with bleed removal, so they're the staunching flasks. Generally anything with bleed removal is sellable, and sometimes they can be up to 5 chaos each if you have, for example, a very high evasion roll or something like that. And this is an insta flask, which pretty desirable early in the league. So an insta flask with remove bleeding is something that should sell extremely easily. And the mana flask, I don't generally craft mana flasks, but you could try. Alright, so now we come to the interesting part, which is the jewelery. So all this dropped in Dried Lake, and what most people do is alch the jewellery. Now normally you want to be alching higher item level, so this is all level 67 to 69, but if you're not running high level maps like a lot of new players don't, you can still make a little currency from alching this type of item level. In fact, you can get a T1 life roll even on a 67 level ring. This we can't alch because it's magic. I just included the gold ring because this is an example of a base. I mean, even if this was a... Oh, well, see that? That may actually sell. What I was going to say is that the gold ring is a fairly nasty base because the implicit doesn't do anything useful. So normally you wouldn't craft a gold ring, especially not item level 67. Some people craft a high item level ones to try and get a good magic find ring. I'm not really a fan of magic find at the moment. It doesn't seem to be a lot of point to it. One of them's already rare, so we ID it, and it's actually a pretty good ring, so that's definitely sellable. It's got life, it's got good resistance, and it's got strength. It's a very nasty base though. The extra mana is not really very useful. And what you want to do with something like that is, if you have the Elrian crafting bench, is just add another resistance. Now, if it's the start of the league, you might not be able to do these 21 to 25, so you probably have to do the 16 to 20. I generally add cold res. I don't know why, it just seems to be harder to get max cold res for some reason. So you would craft it like that, and now you've got a life dual res ring with strength. That ring would probably be worth, I don't know, 4 chaos. So that was a bit of a lucky find. And the other gear, you generally just alch and hope you get something good. Interesting one, possibly sellable. Probably not though. I don't think the fizz damage roll is good enough. Interesting to have the chaos res though. This one is definitely sellable, so we'll put that down here. This has double decks, so anyone chasing decks will love this. The damage rolls are not super relevant. They're not bad rolls, but a lot of builds won't need them. The crit strike chance is good, and the fire res is good. So there are 3 good rolls on a good base, and the attack damage is a bonus. And we'll craft. Let's do all the crafting as we go. Looks like I can't add a suffix. Since the damage rolls are relevant to attacks, I would put life on this instead of energy shield. And again, you probably won't have the max life roll option early in the game, so you want to just put on whatever life you can. Having life on in any form will just trigger any search that someone does with life, so it'll help you sell it. So we spent 2/3 of a chaos and an alch, so we spent basically 1 chaos to craft this. And what's it worth? Probably 3 or 4 chaos. What else did we get? A nice intelligence roll, some mana regen. It's probably garbage. This one, bad intelligence roll, rarity, yeah, that's garbage. this 2-stone. Cast speed's very good, but everything else is hopeless. Bad energy shield roll. If that had a good energy shield roll, we would keep that. The reason I didn't arc the diamond ring is because it's sometimes more intelligent to craft them by alt spamming. Okay, so let's do that. The only problem is you don't normally alt spam gear that's only item level 69. But we're going to do it. And for comparison, I'm going to do a couple of higher level diamond rings. So if you were, say, running some higher level maps, maybe you jumped into someone else's party, you'd be able to do this too. Okay, let's do 6. Now this is the dried lake ring. Okay, so this can't roll as high. The percentage on the the resistance, for example, can't be as high. They can all run they can all roll T1 life. What else are we looking for? We're looking for weapon elemental damage, a good strength roll, or even dex or intelligence. Added physical damage is very good. Good thing about diamond rings is there are so many good sets of affixes that make it valuable. Good energy shield is valuable, so we'll go through these. These are all level 80 plus, so they can get higher rolls. And we start off with the trans orb. And now we, hopefully I don't run out of alterations. We alt spam. So this is a bit of an experiment for me, because I don't normally alt spam something that's item level 69. We got really good fire res. That must be close to max roll for this ring. Oh, and we got life. This is this is very lucky. So pretty good life roll. T2 life. And a pretty good fire resistance roll. This is sellable as a blue item for, I would say, at least 3 chaos. And you have the option to regal it. If you could regal another resistance and then craft another resistance, it could be 10 chaos plus. We'll maybe do that. Anyway, let's do these other rings. So we're looking for slightly better rolls on these. So we got the elemental damage. That can go up to 42% for a higher level ring. So not the best roll. Accuracy is terrible. I mean, accuracy is okay if it's a 300 plus roll, but not 17. Okay, so we got a T1 life roll, we got a pretty good dex roll. Anything above 35 I consider to be good. So because this is a high level ring, you normally regal them, because by the time you're in high level maps, you're normally you've normally got some regals, or you can afford to buy them. Oh, and we got the best thing. Increased elemental damage with weapons. So let's go and put probably a resistance on this. You could put strength on this ring to get extra damage. It's unfortunate that that dex roll wasn't a strength roll. I'm really hesitating what to do here. Strength or resistance? I might go with the resistance. I think you need at least 1 resistance on a ring. We got a pretty good roll. All right. This ring, it's actually worth quite a bit. I'd have to value it. If I was just going to sell it right now, I'd probably ask as much as 30 chaos. If I price checked it, it could be worth more, but without price checking it, I'm thinking maybe more, maybe 30 to 40 chaos. It's also got a very well rolled implicit. So we only spent a few alts and a regal to get this, right? A couple of arcs. Oh, this one is already excellent. So that's probably T1 energy shield and very good cold resistance. T2, I think. So we regal that for sure. Oh, that's terrible. How many arcs do I have? Not many arcs. This is still sellable. I'll put another resistance on it. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's put it down here. Whoops. Pretty good lightning damage roll, but the resistance is poor. Lightning damage doesn't seem to be something that people want to buy. I mean, it's good for some builds, but I found that they're hard to sell. So that intro is about as low as I would accept. As I said, 35 or higher is generally what I look for. See, this in the past I've tried to sell these. It's a pretty bad lightning damage roll. It's just not worth regaling. Mana regen actually has been something people are buying lately, but I want something above 60%. I guess we can try and get double. It's probably already double rarity. Yeah. If you can get 40% rarity on a ring, it's sellable. Tri-res, which is good. I don't think people really look for fat evasion on rings. This is interesting. Unfortunately, the first roll is too low. This is sort of the same. That first roll is a little bit low. Attack speed is good, but we want 2 good rolls. Okay, so we've got another life ring. Tri-res, definitely going to regal this. Oh, and terrible result. So it doesn't always go perfectly like it did here, but they're still sellable. That's a good tri-res roll. Oh, bad life roll. I actually really enjoy doing this. Int. Dex. In general, I would say Dex is the least valuable on a diamond ring. Strength is best and Int is second best. Fire damage, not a great roll, but it's nice to have a damage mod. At least a % damage mod. Physical is a bad roll. Strength is a bad roll. That would have been great if they were, T1. Not the best tri-res roll, but we'll have a crack. Bad life. Again, a pretty bad roll, but what the hell. Alright, so this is really good energy shield and pretty good lightning. I mean, it's okay lightning res. For a high level ring, it's not great. And we got garbage, absolute garbage. This is interesting. It's, you know, a moderate elemental damage roll. If the lightning res was higher, I'd probably accept that. We'll keep going though. Pretty high mana regen roll. And I'm running out of ults, so I have to try and get something good here. Oh, nice accuracy roll. Man, I'm going to run out. Yep. Alright. So, we'll have to craft that one another day. So we'll put another resistance onto this. Let's do lightning res this time. I actually ran out of alch, so I'll just put the lesser resistance on these. Okay, so we started off with 76, I think it was, alterations. So that was about, what, 5 or 6 chaos. So what's 5 times 15 is 75. So yeah, we spent 5 chaos. And you know, this ring alone would pay for everything. This is at least, I think, 30 chaos. Maybe up to 40, 45. I'll put in a video of a ring that I just sold for 50 chaos, so you can at least see some evidence that good rings do sell. But to have that weapon elemental damage and life is very useful, and if someone needs a dex, they will pay good money for this. This is a good example of where to stop with a blue ring. You know, if it were high level, I'd definitely regal it, but you know, if I'm simulating someone who's just running Dried Lake, it's a Dried Lake level ring, they probably don't have any regals, you would probably stop and sell this for, I don't know, 3 to 4 chaos, maybe 5 chaos. There are some builds that get more damage by using blue items, so it adds to the demand, I guess. This one, this is probably, could be as much as 10 chaos because it's got excellent energy shield. This one, pretty poor resistance rolls. This is probably a, right now, about a 3 chaos ring. Early in the league it might be 4 or 5 chaos. This ring is not as good as this one just because the rolls are lower. So I don't know, this could be a 6 chaos ring. Sometimes something like this can be up around 20 to 30 chaos, but if you wanted to sell it quickly, it's probably a 10 or 12 chaos ring. So I don't know what that adds up to, but there's what, 30, say 45, 55, there's about 60 chaos value here. We got very lucky with this one. If we didn't have that, there's still at least, you know, 20-25 chaos. So excellent result. So what do we do with these terrible items? We use these in the chaos recipe. So if you spend an alch and it doesn't work out, you just use it in the chaos recipe, you basically get your money back. So you don't really lose any money by alching jewelry. And you'll get the odd item which you can sell. So these are, you know, 3 or 4 chaos each. Now, this takes a little bit of game knowledge. Hopefully what you see here is a good demonstration. I think we've covered the basics pretty well. You've learnt about the life roll and resistance. You've learnt about the weapon elemental damage. Energy shield is very good, especially if it's above 40. And we've looked at a couple of mediocre ones. So we've covered things pretty well. There are one or two other mods like cast speed and attack speed are very good. So they're just as good as the weapon elemental damage. Anyway, I think that's a pretty good introduction to what you can achieve by just crafting some rings without spending a lot of money. Just a few alts and a few alks. Easy. So while I was doing a lap around Dried Lake, I also picked up a rustic sash, and these do or give you extra damage just like the diamond ring does, so they're quite desirable. If you pick them up, you might want to stick to ones that have fairly high rolls, so 20% or higher. I've just trans-orbed this one, and now I'm going to alt spam it to try and get something good. I got a life roll, which is very high, so that's worth auging, and I got strength. And the strength is very good because it adds even more life and even more damage, so it's basically perfect. The other mod you really want to try and roll is weapon elemental damage. And this is definitely something you could sell as a magic item. Probably you would get 3 chaos for this early in the league. If you wanted to regal it, you could turn into a 10 chaos item quite easily. If you regaled a good resistance and you crafted a second resistance, this could be a 10 chaos item.